A blacksmith hollow coiled ball. Blacksmith Christmas ornament. And this is the blacksmith ball made from 2 feet, 24 inches of 3/16 rod, and I wire brushed the living daylights out of it when it was cool, so it's a little bigger. It fit the swage a little better. Get a nice round ball. Dan Tokar at the Willow Forge in Shepherdstown, West Virginia, with a blacksmith's dictionary. So this one is kind of for Christmas. Could be for anything, but I think of it as a blacksmith's Christmas ornament. I'm going to show you how to make a hollow ball from coiled stock. So this is 18 inches of 3/16 stock made into a ball. We're going to need a 18-inch long length of 3/16 inch mild steel. So I have a rod here and my favorite little zigzag aluminum folding rule. I'll mark out 18 inches. Put the hardy in, and with little stock like this, you can generally just nick it and put it in the pritchel hole, bend it off, break it. 18-inch long piece. I always take the hardy out. I also have another set of tools that I'm going to use a little later that I might as well show you now, just so you get an idea of what they are. That is a swage top and bottom tool for hemispheres, and you'll probably notice that the radiuses don't match up, that the one is about a 2-inch and the other is about 1 3/4 inches, but that won't actually matter in this case. There for the moment. So this is when I have to change over to the filter so that you can actually see the work, because if I get this hot, you'll see nothing but a glow. Down here. I take the rod, stick it in the fire. That blacksmiths could make Christmas ornaments. Just going to round the tip just a tiny bit and then start it into the tightest possible close scroll. Getting these things started is always the hard part, so you just got a little bit of a roll there. All right, one of the other things that will help in a little bit is, because this is 18 inches long, it's nice to know where the exact middle is. So 9 inches should be the exact middle. So I'm going to mark where 9 inches is just so I don't forget. This goes a lot faster once you get that little curl started, because you can heat up a long length. The pathway and winding it around gets to be longer and longer pretty quickly. And being such small stock, it heats up pretty quick. So just like that. And I just kind of roll it up into itself because we want it to actually be in tight contact. So this little scroll is as tight of a little spiral as you can make it. And again, it doesn't take very long for such small stock to get hot. I'll just keep winding that up. A little bigger. At some point it'll get too hot to handle, so I can get my vice grips out. You could use tongs or whatever you like. I just happen to like vice grips for these little things. Sometimes it's just personal preference. It isn't that there is a right and a wrong way. Any way that works is the right way. Main thing is to keep it nice and round and straight. Now you can see where the mark is, that is our 9 inches. So I need just a little tiny bit of that. Just in the corner. Going to go back that much, and I can even use the wire brush on it. Nice and tight and even. And you can probably hear the train coming, so I'm going to cool that off, turn this around, and wait for the train to go by. Hey, the train has gone by. I've cooled off the one end. I still have a pair of vice grips that fit fairly well. I'm going to do the exact same thing to the other end of this bar. I'm going to coil it up, but in the opposite direction. So you can think of it as the two spirals sort of making a very long S pathway. One faces right, the other left, or clockwise and counterclockwise, depending upon how you want to look at it. The important thing, though, is that the length of the stock that you have coiled up for that spiral on both sides is pretty much even. So, I start off with just sort of rounding the tip a little bit, and then and again, you want a nice, tight, coil. I know it's kind of obvious, but I tell people that you hit it in the direction you want it to go. If you want it to coil up backwards, you coil it up backwards. Some people will hit things in strange directions, and you wonder, why are they hitting them in a direction they don't want the metal to go? It's just strange. But people have all sorts of ideas. Not all of which are functional. See, that became hot very quickly. Also, I'm trying to angle this so you can view it a little better. So I'm having to orientate this not the way I would normally work, but so that the camera can actually sort of see what I'm doing. There, so we've gotten to that point. Again, it heats up very quickly. Okay, next heat I should pretty much be able to coil that all the way in. Kind of a fun shape all in of itself. It looks like one of those Celtic spirals. The rock art that they did back in the Bronze Age. That's another topic entirely. We don't have to worry about Bronze Age rock art when we're making Christmas ornaments. At least I hope we don't have to worry about them. So, what do we have? We have that. Spirals going in both directions and about the same size. What do we do with that? Well, to start with, we get it hot, but we need our cup swage, a hemisphere swage, which is a 2-inch hemisphere. And you need either a ball peen hammer or something close to the radius. Something close to the radius so you can sort of start to ball that up. A largish ball peen hammer. I might even have a bigger ball peen for this. You might say that a smart blacksmith might actually have pulled out the right tools before he started filming, but well, nobody ever said I was the smartest blacksmith. clean that off. Put that over there and very gently tap it, and you'll see you start to get a hemisphere shape, at least a little bit of a coil. And you can actually take up some of the slack in that. So you now have a shape that's like that on that side. I'm going to do the same to the other side on the facing side. I'll need a pair of tongs that I can grab it with, so get the other side hot and do the same thing. Kind of sink it into the hemisphere to make a beginning of a ball. You say, well, how do you go from a pancakey kind of flat thing to a full sphere? Well, we're going to get there. Bear with me. Why is it never raccoon with me or duck with me? Well, yeah, you can duck with me. I've had to duck with lots of people. Okay, so we get that. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to gently take it in there, and then as long as you've got it, you can actually sort of pull it into a partial, a little tighter shape so that you end up, and well, I will leave it to the imagination as to what that is. But right now, that's two semi-hemispheres, and what I'm going to do is heat the middle up and pull them in like a clamshell. Is that you can shrink the ball between the two hemispheres. So, then I can just sort of grab it and squeeze it, and I've got a shape like that, and I want to try and regularize the ball, so I will gently tap it to start evening out the radiuses, and this is just enough to help it a little bit before I start. So the first rough ball looks like that. Okay, now I got to heat the whole thing up fairly evenly. For this to work, the whole length of that coil has to be heated up fairly high. And I am going to need the top switch. Get the dust out of it, the top switch, and I'm going to hit it gently because it is a hollow ball just made out of coiled up rod, so all you're really doing is gently persuading it to be a round thing. If you hit it too hard, you're going to turn it into sort of a squash football shape. Again, part of this is that I have to keep turning the ball in the fire to make sure that it's evenly heated. Because to make a nice round ball, you need to have a ball that has heat all the way around fairly evenly. Otherwise, the hotter parts will move more than the cooler parts, and you'll have a very lopsided ball. Nobody wants to have lopsided balls. You might even need a different pair of tongs. This little pair of tongs might work better for grabbing this thing now that it's a ball shape. Alright, so we've got that shape. And what I do is I put that there and I tap it, and then I keep rotating it as I tap it. I never hit it too hard. Because if you hit it too hard, all you end up doing is collapsing the ball. And you do have to worry, because you can see how this is starting to turn into a ball, that sometimes the ends get stuck on themselves and they won't collapse, so you have to help them sometimes. So what I'm going to do is put the ball back in the fire, and I'm going to get a little thin screwdriver to pull those things up a little bit. Little thin screwdriver. Okay, so to help this along, like I said, sometimes you have to get it past itself because the little ball gets stuck. So sometimes all you do is pull the coils up a little bit. That way they don't get stuck on each other. You see how that is much more of a ball. And you have to keep it moving. You need to be able to get heated up again. I've got one little spot there that might need a little help. Okay. So getting this thing nice and evenly hot is part of the game. You don't want to have these things be too hot in any one spot. It has to be hot enough to move and not so hot that it flattens out. That actually looks pretty good. And again, you want to just persuade it as you go along. It'll get to be rounder and rounder. And as long as you don't get to be too excited and hit it too hard, you just have to position it so that the correct part of the ball, the part that's sticking out too much, is what's getting corrected. Maybe a little hard for you to see on the camera with the filter, but there is still just a little bit of heat in that ball. So, it's gone round and round and round. And it's almost a perfect. I know, that last little bit wasn't terribly exciting, but, you know, being delicate is quite often what you need to get these little things. And I've got another train. So what I'm going to do is cool this little ball off and show you what we have here. So there's our little ball. I think it's a little heavy to be putting as a Christmas ornament, but it is a hollow ball. Right, drop it on the floor, and that always makes it work better. And you can correct these things a little bit when they're cold. Minor corrections. It's one of those things that if you had a perfectly matched set of hemispheres, you could probably make a perfect sphere. But I'm happy enough to make something that is pretty much a perfect sphere. Our friends, the train. It's a train. Bye. And this is the blacksmith ball made from 2 feet, 24 inches of 3/16 rod, and I wire brushed the living daylights out of it when it was cool, so it's a little bigger. It fit the swage a little better. Get a nice round ball.